Greetings, nerds, and a video where it makes sense for me to wear gloves. These are Gamblin metallic oil paints, and these things really interest me as somebody who adores oil paints. So they are true metal pigment. These are brass and copper. This is aluminum. You can't really see that it's aluminum on there, but trust me, it says PM1 right there. It says aluminum powder. And then these do say PM2 on them. So they're genuine metal pigment instead of mica, which is super, super cool. However, these things are a complete miss from Gamblin's end. So one, the quality control is awful. These two tubes here had giant air pockets in them, and when I opened them, they squirted everywhere. Now, I don't know what type of oil are in these three, because it just is oil modified with alkyd resin, which that's another problem I have to point out. This one, however, is soy-based. I don't like using soy-based things because it generally is bad for my health, since I have an allergy to it. Ooh, look, Dreslor. But yeah, this is also the only one that doesn't say it contains petroleum distillate. So I don't know if it does or not. It doesn't smell like it. However, I would still be hesitant to working with it because these three do. But these are their older tubes. This is their newer tube. Those are two major issues with it right there. Now, you can kind of see this right here, but you notice how there's a really bad grain effect to this. These things are gritty and grainy. When I did a particle size analyzing test, it averaged out to about 10 microns, which is not bad. However, you were seeing upwards of 40 to even 80 microns at times, which, if you don't know, that's really bad for metallic paint. You don't want micron size that large. When I put it on top of this canvas here, one thick coat, you can see that it is not very opaque. It's very, very transparent in reality, which they list these as opaque, so I have an idea of what they should be. Instead, what you get is a mess of a clumpy, glumpy, nasty oil paint that the reality of this is that it has too much wax in it for me to even want to ever use it. We can close the tube correctly. You'll notice that this one right here is not the one that says soy-based, but it keeps those peaks and valleys really, really hardcore. When you compare that to another oil paint, a good brand like Michael Harding, Williamsburg, you'll see it flip over and kind of meld into itself because they're creamy. These are not creamy, they're tacky and sticky. Like, there's an actual resistance to me pulling this off. And you can see it keeps, peaks and valleys, as I said. Which, that's not necessarily a good thing. Some people might really like that idea, especially if they're painting thickly or alla prima. But I want as thin as possible because I want smooth. I'm not using these for canvas necessarily. I'm using them to paint D&D figures because I'm weird and I like using oil paints for that. Now, because these are true metal, there's a couple problems here. These things dry really, really, really quickly. And I mean really quickly. When I was testing these, I was seeing around 5 to 6 hours of them becoming roughly touch dry. I think in total was about 8 hours. That's incredibly, incredibly quickly for an oil paint. That has to do with the solvent and the fact that these are an alkyd as well. Because these are an alkyd, because they contain solvents, you can't really use them indoors all that well. The smell of this is already getting to me and causing me to get a little bit angry. because of how bad it smells. They really, really smell like solvent. And I don't mean the funny type of solvent, I mean turpentine solvent, which has very noxious fumes to it. Now, I know it says petroleum distillate on there, which would imply odorless mineral spirits or mineral spirits, but these are not odorless in the slightest when it comes to that solvent. Not at all. They reek really badly. And another problem here. This is not so much a major problem, but because these are true metal, it means that the silver and the rest of them are not compatible, because you'll cause galvanic corrosion when you mix them. So it's just something to keep in mind. That's not a huge deal. I expect that, but people mix these two all the time, so you never know what someone will do. It will turn green. It will corrode. So it's not archival to mix them, if you care about archival things. Now this one right here was extra nasty. This new one that supposedly doesn't have solvents in it, which it doesn't really smell too much like a solvent like those other ones do. But yeah, this one here is extra thick. Extra thick, extra harsh, and honestly, it wasn't very nice to work with. These are 100% for palette knives, not for brushes. You can mix the copper and the brass, by the way, because brass is just copper with zinc or tin in it, depending on the chemical complex. But yeah, these are not very fun to work with when you are with a brush, because how thick they are. When you thin them down, they don't have enough pigmentation in them to support that. So you just start seeing these grains everywhere, a lot of grit and a lot of grain everywhere. Ultimately, I'd say these are something that you can completely skip unless you're using a palette knife. I don't recommend them. I don't think they're a very good paint. I expected more from Gamblin due to their reputation of being a good brand. However, I don't personally think Gamblin is a good brand anymore. I think their quality has been dropping, and this is a huge sign of it. They do interesting things like this, but I expect way more from Gamblin. They have a very good reputation with artists, as I said. They don't have a great reputation with conservators or restoration people, whatever they're called. The solvent smell is starting to affect me really badly, and it's yeah, I need to throw this canvas outside. But yeah, skip these paints. They're awful, honestly. I tried them on some miniatures, and we can grab one of them real quick. That silver, or that brass, as you can kind of see on camera, it's very gritty. It does not look good. That's 2 coats, by the way, which 2 coats with an oil paint, that's going to take me a couple days to do that. I'm not a fan. The silver's fine. I will say that. The silver, I don't mind that much, but it's also a generic silver. Generic aluminum. So that doesn't really help me on the quest for finding the best gold paint. It really doesn't even help me finding a good gold paint at this point. That's about all, though. I think I've said that multiple times. My brain's starting to hurt. Oh, which reminds me, there's some links down below for the Discord and the Ko-Fi if you want to help support the channel.